What's going on, everyone, and welcome back to the channel. Today we have some more Golden State Warriors news, with it currently being reported by Stephen A. Smith that the 76ers guard Ben Simmons could of course actually be traded to the Golden State Warriors, and they will of course be interested in trading for him. He goes on to say, I believe the Golden State Warriors are going to make a push for Ben Simmons. So keep your ears tuned, stay tuned. It's possible Ben Simmons could end up, in Golden State. So I think this is a very, very interesting one. Someone actually made a funny comment that I'd like to point out. They actually said Simmons and Green, the Splash Brothers 2.0. You're actually 100% right with that one, but I think this is a really interesting one. I've talked about this in a previous video I don't actually know how I think about this whole, Ben Simmons and Golden State Warriors thing. Like, should the Golden State Warriors, of course, go out and potentially, try and trade for them? Of course, he's been very interested in, they've been very interested in Ben Simmons for a very, very long time. So it will be extremely interesting to see how this, of course, all goes. What they would have to trade up, I think, would be a really hard one. I would, of course, assume Andrew Wiggins would have to be in the deal because Andrew Wiggins is a very good player. Very underrated in my opinion. James Wiseman, I think, wouldn't be in the deal because I don't think Philadelphia would prioritize, having another, center like that. I have a feeling it'd probably be something like, Andrew Wiggins, probably a young player like Jordan Poole, and maybe a couple of first-round picks. Maybe that 14th overall pick the Philadelphia 76ers might be interested in as well. I really wouldn't think it'd be exactly too much, and I think if you're a Warriors fan, you'd actually be pretty excited to maybe get a deal like this done, as you've just found your new center for the future. Now, I know Ben Simmons isn't a great center. He's only played center a little bit, and he's not exactly a dominant rebounder or anything like that. But when you actually watch him play center, he actually does pretty well. He hasn't exactly had any small ball lineups or small ball coaches prioritizing him over that center position. But when he's actually gone there, he's actually played well with some spaces around him, and it's been incredibly hard for big men to be able to guard a dude that's as fast as a point guard and has the core awareness of a point guard. Like, could you imagine Karl Anthony Towns or Jarrett Allen trying to guard Ben Simmons at center? Again, it'd be a very hard thing to do. Like, Ben Simmons would be able to run much faster than them. He'd get down the floor, of course, way, quicker. And if you've got playmakers like Steph Curry and Draymond Green, the lobs would be absolutely insane. Not just that, imagine the shooters he'd have around him. Okay, so if you trade Andrew Wiggins away, you'd have Steph Curry at point guard, Klay Thompson at shooting guard, and Kent Bazemore at small forward, Draymond Green at power forward, and of course Simmons at center. So you'd have three very, very good shooters in that starting five that he could of course play make to or kick it out if he gets in trouble. I just think this would be a very interesting move. The issue I see is Golden State really prioritize screen setting around Draymond Green. And usually, once Draymond Green, does screen setting, they'll usually find an open center or, whether that's going to be on the three-point line to do another screen or something like that. I'm not exactly too sure. Will Ben Simmons fit into this whole screen setting kind of lineup, and can he get out of his offensive struggles? Because if he can, I think Simmons would actually be very, very good, for this Golden State Warriors team. Of course, if he can get back to shooting, nice around the rim and not passing up open layups for no reason, then I think he would be alright. I think, though, what you have to do with Simmons is, I think you let Kelly Oubre walk in free agency or try and do a sign and trade to bring in another shooter. The reason why I say this as well is because if you have, of course, you'd have Eric Pascal, off the bench. I feel like a rotation of James Wiseman, Eric Pascal, and Simmons, and Draymond is enough players that can't shoot. If you bring Kelly Oubre in, he'll probably be your backup small forward. And Kelly Oubre has not been a good shooter for quite a while now. His three-point shooting is very inaccurate, and I just don't feel like you can have a player like that around Simmons. So you'd probably have to trade him to, bring in another shooter. Or just let him walk in free agency and sign a shooter. And I think you'd have to still trade maybe James Wiseman unless you wanted to. I guess you could bring him off the bench, and then if Simmons isn't doing well at center against some players, who might be bodying him, then I guess you maybe bring James Wiseman on for a bit of help. So I guess you'd actually probably keep James Wiseman. I think you keep Eric Pascal for some scoring off the bench. Then, of course, I think you bring back Nico Mannion, Damian Lee, of course, Kent Bazemore. You bring in all these shooters, you know, to come back in the team. And then I think you look to go out and get some more potential shooters in free agency because, again, those are a lot of players that can't shoot, you know, Wiseman, Simmons, Green, and Pascal. So you're going to definitely want to surround shooters around him. Well, I feel like if the Philadelphia 76ers, if they're going to go out and get Kyle Lowry off a sign and trade, getting a player like Andrew Wiggins in would actually be a very, very good thing to do. Like, you could be looking at a starting five of, like, you know, Kyle Lowry at point guard, Seth Curry at shooting guard, Andrew Wiggins a small forward, Tobias Harris a power forward, and Joel Embiid. Like, if that can't make a conference finals appearance, then you're probably going to have to blow up the team, because that's a pretty good team. But off the bench, you could still have, like, Tyrese Maxey, you know, Dwight Howard, Danny Green, etc. You would think that would definitely make the playoffs. And again, there are, like, a couple of shot creators in that team, but it's not like there aren't shooters as well. Like, you still have, you know, Danny Green, maybe Mike Scott would potentially, of course, come back. Seth Curry, Kyle Lowry can be a, you know, a very nice shooter. I think you'd have your shot creators like Andrew Wiggins, of course, Tobias Harris, and, you know, Tyrese Maxey off the bench, and I guess, you know, Joel Embiid maybe as well, a little bit here and there. But again, that'd be a very interesting team. So is this a little bit of like a win-win for both teams? In my opinion, I'm not too sure if the Warriors should, or if the Philadelphia 76ers should necessarily make this deal. I think if you're looking at a sign and trade, you're looking to bring in some shooters more than some shot creators, which is exactly what Andrew Wiggins is. He's more of a shot creator, and I just think you need another shooter in, you know, like a Buddy Hield type of dude, or you just sign and trade him to the Raptors and try and get like Kyle Lowry and a first back, maybe something like that. Could definitely go down. I think the Toronto Raptors would be very much interested in it. So I think that's more of what you, of course, go ahead and try and look at. If not, I'm, you know, pretty bizarred out on how, of course, the, you know, Philadelphia 76ers would go about this. I do think Andrew Wiggins would be okay. He's just not a shooter. But hey, he's better than nothing, right? He's probably better than, you know, having Simmons on the team at the moment. I definitely think Simmons needs to be traded. He's lost all confidence at Philadelphia, and it just doesn't make any sense for him to, you know, really be on there at all. Of course, I think for a Golden State standpoint as well, though, if you can have Ben Simmons, you know, as your starting center, even if he fails to not be that good of a center, you can always just bring James Wiseman maybe off the bench to cover up for his lackluster defense that he might, you know, potentially have. But hey, I think he'd work pretty well. Like, he's a very, very good defender. My issue is he would get bodied by players like Joel Embiid. But I definitely think he'd be able to guard players like Karl Anthony Towns and Nikola Jokic on the three-point line, etc. He'd be able to pretty much keep up with them, I think, quite a bit, and then still be able to switch on the guards. And, you know, Draymond Green can do a lot of switches here and there as well. But of course, if this all starts to fail, you kind of have like your backup plan off the bench with James Wiseman, who, of course, is still a second overall pick, and I expect him to, you know, potentially be a lot more of a better player in this offseason. So yeah, I guess it's a win-win for the Warriors and the Sixers, but the Sixers just got to make sure they can bring in Kyle Lowry at the end of this free agency, because he's been very interested in going there, and I think he'd kind of be pretty perfect for this team. So I think that should be their main priority, but of course I think trading away Ben Simmons should also be a main priority as well, because I just don't think he really works with this Philadelphia team anymore, and again, he's lost all confidence. So I guess, you know, giving Ben Simmons a fresh start would most likely be the best case scenario, you know, for him, and of course, whatever team, you know, he ends up with, and the Philadelphia 76ers. But of course, if you haven't already, make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel for all the latest NBA content and sports content. Of course, don't forget to subscribe to my gaming channel and my IRL/vlogging channels. And don't forget to check out my podcast as well if you haven't already, which I will link in the description down below. But as I was saying, thank you guys so much for watching this video. Make sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. Leave a comment down below, and I will see you guys next time. Goodbye.